Well, actually, if you look very thoroughly of the latest news, he is indeed not out. He is not any longer the head of the Verfassungsschutz, about the secret protection for the Constitution unit, but in the end he got promoted. He becomes the Secretary of State in the Ministry of the Interior, and that is a real scandal. He has failed in his job, and he got promoted for that. That is,
promoted,
I think it's unbelievable what has.
Promoted or kicked upstairs?
Sorry?
Has he been promoted or has he been kicked upstairs, given a higher ranking position on paper, but with less power?
Well, that is a good question, whether he is promoted. In fact, de facto, it is a promotion. He get a job which is higher ranking and higher paid, and, well, you can say kicked up or promoted. Kicked up, maybe it would fit better, but in the end, it's a promotion. He earns more money, more influence, and he is a more important person then.
So what does this say about Angela Merkel's coalition, where you had, on the one hand, the CSU with the interior minister, which wanted him to stay, and the Social Democrats, also part of that grand coalition, who wanted him out? Where does this leave Angela Merkel?
Well, we have a long-standing conflict between Angela Merkel and the CSU, particularly the Minister of the Interior, Seehofer. And I think the Maaßen has overdrawn, and the other opposition partner said, no, we can't carry on like that. And by that, Ms. Merkel came in a very difficult situation, either to lose a coalition partner, SPD, or to have a break of the conservative unit, of this union, of these two conservative parties. And in the end, I think she decided to keep the union with a Christian social union, and she found a solution which is also a kind of a faith-saving way for the Social Democrats, because the Social Democrats went very forceful in this conflict, but suddenly they recognize they don't want to risk the coalition and have the participation government for this question. Therefore, the question is not important enough. And then, in the end, they have now to swallow a tart. They have to swallow the situation that the person they wanted to get rid of gets promoted in the end. And that is, I think that's ridiculous.
Let's give some context for viewers who don't follow Germany closely. Wolfgang Rentsch, I know that under Germany's constitution, checks and balances are an obsession. Did he overstep his powers?
Well, I think Maaßen overstepped his powers. As a civil servant, you're obliged to a certain loyalty. Well, you may have your opinion, but a civil servant, particularly a high-ranking civil servant, cannot get in opposition to the government, And if he does, then he should resign, That is the point. And even, we are very careful, with a simple policeman. If a policeman attends a right-wing demonstration, which of course is allowed for him, but if he gets involved in violent affairs, he will get punished for that, because that is the observance of the law will be looked at more closely, with civil servants than with ordinary people. And therefore, I think Maaßen has violated his obligations of loyalty to the government. And therefore, and that was not the first time. There was, I think, a headline in the paper, some said, one scandal every year. And he was somebody who went over borders and always in the right-wing direction, which was accepted by the very conservative Christian Social Union. And it was against the Chancellor.
Let me just let me just ask you about that. Let me just ask you about that, because one of the things that's reproached to him again is the fact that he's had those repeated contacts with the far right AfD party. And is this a turning point for Germany? Does this crisis reveal how perhaps Germany as a whole is changing?
Well, that is well, firstly, in the context of the AfD, that is very tricky, because as a member at the head of the Verfassungsschutz, he had the right and maybe even the obligation to talk to leading politicians about security situation. He has to inform them, and therefore, and he talked also to other parties. Therefore, I'm not quite sure whether it is really a tricky point that he talked to the AfD, and what he has said is rather controversial. Well, the second question was, has the Federal Republic shifted to the right? I'm not quite sure about that. We have currently in all Western nations, in the European Union, in North America, in Australia, a certain shift to the right. That's the reaction to globalization, and that the people want to have their nation again. At the moment, I see another process, that those who are open-minded and who look for, let's say, international structures, who are more cosmopolitan people, more liberal people, start to organize and start to fight back. That's the very beginning still, but we have something. You look, in France, you have a president which has fought an election campaign on pro-European issues. That's wonderful. I would like to have that with our chancellor, but she doesn't do it. She is too timid. She is too shy for that, because she would come in conflict with members of her own party, and she doesn't obviously like conflicts.